February is Black History Month. But why? Where did Black History Month come from? It began with this man, Carter G. Woodson, a historian and writer. Woodson noticed that his people were, quote, overlooked, ignored, and even suppressed by the writers of history textbooks and the teachers who use them, end quote. So he started a Black History Week in 1926, and people celebrated it enthusiastically. They started Black History clubs, and teachers started recognizing the contributions of Black Americans in their classrooms. He chose February, by the way, because it held the birthdays of both Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, two men he believed had done tremendous work for the rights and liberties of African Americans. It took another 50 years, though, for Black History Month to become officially recognized by our government. The president at the time, Gerald Ford, said that we should seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. Here's the funny thing, though. Carter G. Woodson hoped that someday people would no longer celebrate Black History Month. He saw the day when it would no longer be necessary, when finally we would see Black history in America for what it really is, an essential part of American history.
Sadly, the vision of Carter G. Woodson has not been fully realized. Therefore, the need for Black History Month continues and will continue to be relevant until such time that Black history is fully embedded in and recognized as integral to and not separate from American history. So, as we begin our celebration of Black History Month, it seems fitting and appropriate to celebrate one of God's servants who holds a special place in the history of the church for Black people.
Richard Allen is an American hero.
He was a pioneer, and he blazed a trail for future generations to follow.
He was the first African American leader to lead through nonviolence.
Richard Allen was born in 1760, a slave to Benjamin Chew of Philadelphia. When he was 7 years old, Chew separated Allen from his family and sold him to Stokely Sturgis in Delaware.
Your mother has already been sold. You've been separated from beloved family members. You're working long, grueling days. You look around you and all you see is slavery and bondage and hardship.
At age 17, he joined the Methodist Society, which met in the woods around the Sturgis farm.
That was really the foundational moment in his life when he meets these Methodist ministers who are, going through Delaware and preaching the gospel, and his life is converted. He's literally changed.
The explanation of scriptures helped inform his understanding of who he was as a man. God certainly didn't make him to be bound.
When he was 26, Allen and his brother purchased their freedom, agreeing to pay $2,000 over 5 years. Allen traveled, first to Radnor, and then to Philadelphia, where he became the early morning preacher at St. George's United Methodist Church.
The Methodist Church was still very equal in the way that it treated everyone. It was not uncommon to find a black slave, for example, preaching to white slave owners.
His presence and message brought in many new members. As Allen's following grew, white church leaders began segregating African Americans in the balcony during services.
He marches to the pews that he thinks he belongs in, and one of the white leaders starts walking down the aisle to where Absalom Jones, the senior member of the black community, is praying on his knees, and he says, get up, you go to the back of the church, you don't belong here. And Allen is watching this from the side. If he tells Absalom Jones to get up, and white parishioners don't stop him, we leave. If he tells Absalom Jones to get up and white parishioners say, sit down, he's equal, we stay.
But the white parishioners were silent, and Allen and Jones led the black congregation out of St. George's.
Walking out of St. George's Church is the beginning of civil rights movements in American society.
That was really the moment that Allen wanted and had been waiting for.
Another critical moment occurred in the summer of 1793, when Philadelphia found itself in the grip of a devastating yellow fever epidemic. More than 10% of the city's people died, half the population left, and Allen mobilized Black Philadelphians as the foot soldiers in the war against the epidemic.
They looked at it as an opportunity to show our responsibility as citizens, our civic duty.
Allen had a relationship with Benjamin Rush, the city's leading physician, who assured him that caring for those infected with yellow fever would improve the standing of African Americans in the city.
Once the fever passed, publisher Matthew Carey printed his account of the yellow fever outbreak. He charged Black Philadelphians with theft and extortion. Allen and Absalom Jones were outraged, and they went on the offense, printing a detailed rebuttal to Carey's account.
They put together the first copywritten book by African Americans in this country.
Richard Allen understood that you've got to put things down in writing, and that if it's not written, then it did not happen.
A year after the fever nearly destroyed Philadelphia, Allen opened the doors of his own church at 6th and Lombard Streets, the Bethel Church.
The idea of a free, independent African church under its own control was a very powerful symbol that many blacks throughout the country latched onto, which is also what made it a threat. For those who were bound to the institution of slavery, the last thing you wanted was somebody like Richard Allen out there meeting behind closed doors and nobody knew what he was saying.
Allen would use his church to further the cause of equality, operating a station on the Underground Railroad and supporting civic associations to help blacks deal with an increasingly hostile and racist America.
By the early 19th century, powerful forces were trying to undermine Richard Allen. Slavery is expanding in the South, and slaveholding interests are trying to resettle free blacks like Allen in African colonies.
White Methodists continued to claim ownership and control over Allen's congregation until 1816, when the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that Allen's church would remain independent. That same year, Allen united 5 congregations to create the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the first autonomous African American religious denomination in the United States.
This is not simply a white man's republic. No one else in the white founding group of Washington, Madison, Adams is talking in those terms. That's why Allen's so important. He comes along and pierces their thoughts and shows them, at least tries to show them, that this is a contradiction, that you can't have an empire of liberty without black freedom.
Richard Allen died in 1831. His dream for equality and freedom still burning, but unrealized. A sarcophagus containing his coffin, together with his wife, Sarah Bass Allen, is on display in the museum at the Mother Bethel AME Church in Philadelphia.